Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me on Functionally Enlightened. And today we're just going to be covering a little bit of the research efforts that we've been doing regarding implant illness, specifically mesh implant community, and also to address the disability community. So there is a lot of confusion or misunderstanding as to chronic illness. And a lot of people who don't experience it, they actually think that when a person who is experiencing chronic illness, when that person is starting to have more better days, that they're fully recovered. And that isn't necessarily the case. Now, some people are very fortunate and they can achieve a very close to full remission, but that is not always the case. So for people who are experiencing things that are chronic, like dysautonomia, or they have Asia syndrome as a result of a mesh implant or any type of implant that is chronically causing inflammation in the body. Now, there's a sort of bucket theory there, and I've talked about this before, and I'm sure you probably have heard it from different situations, even like the histamine bucket. But the toxin bucket is something that I have been studying over the course of my whole career, not just my chronic illness journey. We'll call it my wellness journey, but through the environmental engineering training that I've done, I dedicated about 23 years of my life to studying environmental health risks and implications to human health. But the bucket theory for toxins is that we all have a threshold, and our genetic predisposition for filling up this bucket is variable. So if a person has some genetic SNPs that prevent them from being able to detoxify easily or being able to absorb nutrients efficiently, then everyone has to be in a persistent state of detoxifying. There are so many toxins out there in our personal care products, in our cookware, in the air we're breathing. They say, the air inside of your home can potentially be more toxic than what's outside, even in an urbanized setting. So think about that along with water quality. Now, municipalities do a great job at cleaning, filtration, disinfecting our water supplies. Now, as we know, it's very difficult to find a pristine water supply. So if we think about all of the discharges that we have into the water supply, from which, again, we extract water for the filtration process, but there's so many extra synthetics going in that are pharmaceuticals. We urinate and we defecate, and that goes back into the water supply. And anything that we're ingesting ultimately goes back to the water supply. In addition to that, the products that we use, plastic bottles, a lot of people have opted to stay away from tap water sources, and they think they're doing their bodies a big justice in replacing the tap water with plastic bottles of water. But those are xenoestrogens, and it's been studied extensively that impacts our hormonal balance. It's estrogen mimicry. So our bodies are thinking that we have all this additional estrogen, and that causes an imbalance in what is manufactured within our bodies. So it's not even just looking at one hormonal value, it's looking at the balance between those hormones and how they're supposed to operate within the various individuals. So men and women have different optimal ranges. And depending on your age, you have a different optimal range. But not to go into this too deeply, and going back into the toxin theory, we have all of these exposures day in and day out. So the best thing you can do for yourself is to eliminate whatever exposures you can, whatever is in your grasp. So you can definitely do product swaps with your personal care products. Start by eliminating things with phthalates, parabens, sulfates, things with fragrances, most definitely. So I often suggest using products that could potentially be eaten. If they're good for our microbiome, or if they don't cause negative impacts to our microbiome, then our skin biome will probably benefit from it as well. So things like coconut oil, and if you like to use a scent, you can opt for an essential oil rather than a synthetic fragrance. very, very, very big. And especially in the case, well, not even in the case of just women anymore, because men are using a lot of colognes, they're using these deodorant sprays, horrible products, especially when they contain metals like aluminum. So I'm sure most of you are aware of what those type of products do to brain cognition and health of our neurological systems. So when we take it back to where I'm focusing my studies in implant illness, whether it be mesh implants, breast reconstruction materials, it can be dental care implants, so things like crowns and even amalgam fillings. Those things have very real and long-standing effect in the body if your body's not able to sort of encapsulate that inflammatory response and manage it well, then it's going to be systemic. It's going to cause symptoms to manifest all over the body. And that's what makes the diagnosis and treatment of these type of things very difficult. So for mesh implant illness, also known as Asia syndrome or foreign body reaction, it might not be possible to have an explant. However, with more and more research, we're learning that maybe 99% of the time that some explant can be accomplished. And there are international surgeons that are coming forward with correct, proper treatment protocols to help these patients that have experienced this type of foreign body reaction. And we'll always refer to it as mesh implant illness. We have an independent study that's been initiated with the aim of exploring the experiences of individuals with suspected mesh implant illness. And this is conducted through an anonymous survey. Since mesh implant illness is becoming a growing concern within the medical community, and it's manifesting in a complex set of symptoms that can significantly impact the patient's lives, even to the point of being bedridden and losing the jobs, losing the ability for self-care. So the study aims to explore these experiences of the individuals with suspected mesh implant illness. And the participants were solicited in a specific way. And so this might lend to some of the limitations. But it was distributed to individuals who exhibited symptoms that are commonly associated with mesh implant illness. And it was a voluntary survey that was initiated. So the data collection included things like demographics, age and gender, details of the mesh implant type and location, symptoms that they've been experiencing, the numerous medical professionals that they've consulted with, and any holistic practices that they've utilized, trying to determine which ones have proven to be effective in managing symptoms, improving quality of life, and things of that sort. So again, we're looking at the type of mesh, specific symptom profiles, types of doctors consulted, and any effectiveness of the traditional medical care. Also, the utilization of holistic practices and perceived impact on symptoms. And then also taking a look at the interval between implant surgery and symptom onset. So this is also highly variable. It depicts a time frame for potential Asia syndrome initiation. And as I'll show briefly in a few diagrams, for those of you who are not watching the video, you can either go back later, or I will definitely be presenting infographics across our websites and across our social media. This information, it can be shared with whomever is interested in the research. And we are always up for collaboration with advocacy groups, universities, and other research-related facilities. So the limitations, as I mentioned, of the study, again, it is self-reported data, so it relies on participants self-reporting their experiencing, and this may be prone to recall bias. So with the selection bias, the anonymous nature of the survey might have attracted a specific population with more severe symptoms. People who are more disabled following any type of procedure, they typically reach out to other support groups, or they try to do the research on their own when they're not receiving help from their medical community or even their close community, their family communities. And when we get into these support groups, we're typically at a more severe state. There can be more of a negative bias. Further direction, we want to build on these initial findings. We want to collaborate with other researchers in the field. We want to conduct larger scale studies. Also, what's very key, I think, is going to be the clinical studies to objectively measure symptom severity and treatment efficacy. So collaboration is crucial, again, between the patients, between the researchers, between the healthcare professionals, in order to develop improved diagnostic criteria and treatment strategies for mesh implant illness. One of the graphics we're generating is one that depicts the number of surgeries that patients have had or have undergone since implantation. So in the legend, we show how many surgeries have been undergone, and then the pie chart shows the representation of the percentage of the respondents who've undergone that total number of surgeries or that range of surgeries. And what is shown here is pretty enlightening. So this graphical representation shows us a quick highlight or a quick snapshot of the number of surgeries that patients have undergone since implantation. And the critical thing here is that the majority of this, more than 50%, have undergone anywhere between 2 and 5 surgeries, with the majority following between 2 and 3 surgeries. So that is 32%. But what is astounding here is that 11% of respondents have undergone more than 10 surgeries since implantation. Now, I know that there's some, again, data bias here, or there might be some discrepancies here because there could be multiple diagnoses, there could be other complications, but the point of this study is to have people report any hernia-related or implant-related surgeries that have come up as a result of their original implant. So I find that very disheartening that people have had to undergo multiple surgeries to kind of rectify something that was traditionally thought of as a routine surgery with a quick recovery time. And that is another thing that's very misleading. I specifically was told 3 to 4 days, and I should be able to, resume almost normal, at least day-to-day function. But it would take 2 to 3 weeks to be able to return to work, and that never happened. In addition to that, the primary surgeon, the general surgeon who performed the implant, told me that I should be able to do exercises such as yoga poses like cobra and downward dog 3 to 4 days after surgery, which is highly impractical and probably dangerous. And not to go off tangent here, we definitely need advocacy. We need to have more resources available, first, to make our decisions whether to pursue a surgery or not. Second, to be presented with all of the possible options. And third, to have resources available for the recovery process. That you can't just provide somebody with a blanket statement because everyone is coming in under different health conditions. They've had other diagnoses, like I mentioned before, they have other health implications. And some people are very athletic, considered otherwise healthy, and their healing would probably be a lot quicker in terms of tissue remodeling, the ability to resume normal function. So that's one of our representations, or that is one of the graphical representations of the data. Now I'm going to share another one that I found very interesting. And please remember that this is an ongoing research, so these graphics will be updated as the research comes in, and we will continue the statistical analysis for relevancy testing. So another piece of the puzzle that is driving my research is the duration of time, or the interval of time between implantation and the exhibition of symptoms related to Asia syndrome or mesh implant illness. So this is another thing that I believe is directly linked to that toxin bucket. So 44%, the vast majority, experience symptoms immediately. And the sad thing about this is that they don't link it to the implant itself, because what they state is that overall procedure itself is responsible for how poorly the patients are feeling. And when this doesn't resolve in the expected time frame, then that's when we start approaching it. Okay, well, the medical community will try to identify any other potential diagnosis without directly going after things associated with mesh implant. That's not a well-regarded or a formal diagnosis that can be evaluated and that can be run through the medical model. So again, 44% are experiencing symptoms immediately. After 2 years, we have 9% of the respondents showing that that's when they started seeing the symptoms and feeling them heighten. And again, there was no connection to any other conditions. So whether it be the mesh implant itself or just the chronic onset of toxins and daily exposure, our bucket is overflowing. And we need to do the best we can to eliminate those toxins, as I mentioned earlier in this presentation. Just to highlight the rest of the data we've collected thus far, between 1 and 3 months, 18% of patients started noticing these chronic symptoms. And then between 1 week and 1 month, 11%. So we have a couple other breakdowns here. Some people it took between 1 and 2 years, that was 7%. And then others between 3 months and 12 months. So that was a smaller percentage at only 2%. And all of this to say, it just shows that the symptoms can be present, but not to a magnitude that we're noticing them and not to the magnitude that it's impacting our quality of life until much later on. And this is also pointed out in the breast implant illness community. I think it's more accepted there. The surgeries for reconstruction are being more embraced in terms of explantation. And for mesh, people are still under the guise that if they have the mesh explanted, that it can only make the situation worse. Well, I'm standing here today as proof that it didn't make it worse. I'm not 100% functional, as I was before the original implantation, but highly more functional than I was after the first implant or after the first surgery. So there is hope. Please do the research. As I said, do the research, find a surgeon who is knowledgeable in mesh implant illness. For those of you who have not undergone the surgery, definitely reach out and get your multiple opinions from surgeons who are well-versed in this, who have performed both implant and explant, who also understand the risks of the different types of materials. And later on, we'll be developing graphics to hopefully identify types of mesh that might be susceptible to chronic inflammation. So that's one of the goals of this study. I want to encourage you all to start working on things internally, things that are in your grasp, like I mentioned earlier. So start working. If you cannot pursue a surgery based on your own individual conditions, based on the recommendation of your surgical team or your medical team, and based on your own insights, then start working on eliminating those things that you can. So I talk a lot about the 5 pillars. So in our program, it's called the point approach. So we're going to look at the proper nutrition. You know, there's things that are considered inflammatory foods. You can start by trying to eliminate them and replace them for less inflammatory foods. If you have issues with oxalate sensitivities or histamine intolerances, there's definitive ways to kind of hone in on your diet to reduce the amount of inflammation. So that's one thing. And then with your resting, with rest, again, the 8 hours of sleep, 7 to 8 hours of sleep is detrimental to allowing your body to restore, rebuild, repair. And when we don't allow ourselves this, especially in the time window that our biological clocks are aimed at, we want to be asleep by 10 p.m. and get those most crucial times, the times when some of the organ systems are working really hard to repair the body, to detoxify the body. We want to get those hours in where we can. So we need to learn methods that are going to improve our ability to get the ample rest we need. And for exercise, now this is a whole nother talk. Exercise, movement, whatever movement we can get to get that lymphatic movement, also the lymphatic system to be draining correctly. I mean, movement is life, repeated over and over again. And with exercise, we're not just building muscle. We're not just building lung capacity. What we're doing is stimulating the limbic system as well. So in stimulating the limbic system, this is allowing for a process called neurogenesis, the ability to change or reorganize or restructure our thought processes. It's really critical to understand we can make substantial shifts based on mindset alone. We will definitely dive into that a lot more with future talks, both having interviews with other practitioners, other wellness warrior community members, and how that ties into stress reduction. Much needed break from the consistent stressors that we experience day to day, especially with the notion that we need to be productive 24/7, or maybe not 24/7, but the productivity. If we're not doing something, if we're not engaged in work related tasks or parenting tasks, if we're not allowing ourselves to unplug from technology, because it's so accessible now at our fingertips. We get an email, we get a notification on our watches, and we have to stop what we're doing. We break our train of thought to shift over to something else, and that's doing the opposite of what we need. The last thing that we can discuss on a future episode is supplementation, and what types of supplements might be effective in helping to detoxify the body. And it's so nuanced. We're not going to give a blanket supplemental protocol. No, what it is that depending on the hidden stressors of every individual person's body, we're going to identify some healing opportunities and then try to address it with diet and lifestyle, with the last step of adding supplemental supports to get the body to be rebalanced, or as rebalanced as possible. And there are some scenarios where supplementation might be required long term, or even, without having a definitive ending date in mind. But if it's helping you to better absorb your nutrients, and it's helping you to rebalance the microbiome, or it's helping you to downregulate your stress response. So those things might be needed long term. And if they are not full of all these synthetic chemicals, yes, supplements are developed in a lab, but looking at the individual ingredients is another critical component. We don't want it to be full of all of these additives or what we call excipients that might actually be causing more of an inflammatory response in the body. And that will take us to the end of this episode. Again, very important to reach out to people who may have had an implant surgery and who are suffering with some chronic and disabling, unexplained symptoms, to let them know that there is hope in addressing these things and to restoring function and balance and improve quality of life. So I thank you again for listening, and I appreciate all the input. I appreciate all of you who are participating in the survey, who are sharing the word, and I look forward to what the research will bring and sharing that with you all. Thank you, and see you on the next one.